So we're a few days into fall or autumn, and I'm still having to put water in that thing because of the evaporation and the heat. It's supposed to get into the 90s this week, second week of September. Whew. I'm sure I'll be in it this week too, because I'm planning a few rides coming up, because I still need to put a couple more miles in before I go do the Seagull Century. But that should be no big deal. Today's adventure. Crows. So today's adventure is not going to be a ride adventure, but a mechanics adventure. The trick is, how do you pack a 700? Yes, my beloved 700 is more than likely sold, but I have to get it packed up in a small enough box. And I'm sending it to someone who claims that they are not mechanically inclined all that much, so they may have to take it to a shop. But I'm going to try and make it so this person doesn't have to take it to the shop. I'm not against supporting your local shop. Please don't get me wrong there. I'm not against that at all. But I think that a lot of things can be done if people would just pick up a few wrenches and do it themselves, as opposed to paying someone else, unless you just don't have the time or the energy, or you don't want to spend the money on the tools, or because you don't have them, or whatever. But I'm all about supporting your local bike shop. However, I'm more about learning to do things yourself. And YouTube is one of the easiest way to learn how to do things for yourself. I've worked on my cars, and I've worked on houses, and I've done all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that I did before I went and did it, you know, if I wasn't looking through a book, I was going to YouTube to find out how to do it. So I'm gonna put this little video together today on how to break down and pack a 700 in the smallest box possible, because as a trike frame, and it's a single piece space frame from Catrike, you can't break it down flat like you can a typical upright bicycle or even a two-wheeled recumbent. I've broken some of those down before when I sold a Rand Stratus, and I was able to get it into an extra long ship bikes box. But with a trike, you have some other challenges. I'll probably take the chain off. I'll probably remove the derailleur, because they're the rear derailleur, because these are things you just don't want to get damaged in shipping. So here we go. Let's see how we break down a 700. So one of the first things I'll be doing is cleaning up the shop so I can get the 700 off the wall, over to the table or over to the box, and go from there. I really need to spend some time cleaning up the shop first, so first priority is cleaning up the shop, and then I'll be able to break down the trike. A bunch of other things, like probably the mirrors. I'll be rotating the handlebars down in, and all kinds of other things, so that I can get this package as small as possible. Fun thing. Okay, I'm going to give you a walkthrough of the standard trike and where it sits now, at least the best I can. We'll see how this turns out in the end, and see how small of a package I can make this. So obviously the boom will either go in all the way, or I'll take it off so I can fold it under or fold it on top of the seat, because the cranks are going to have to be removed or messed around with too, because I may take the crank, one of the cranks off, probably this crank, and reverse it so that the package can get smaller. I can move the boom all the way in, and the package would be smaller that way. But if I just take off the boom all in one piece, undo a couple of these cable ties, this is a Catrike one, so it just pops right off. If I'm able to get the boom all the way out, then I can slide it back in. Now, one of the other things is the chain. Here I have a master link, and on this master link, you just, let me see if I can focus it. So you just squeeze these together and take this off, and then I can remove the chain, and that'll take care of a lot of that, and then I'll put the chain in a bag and we'll go from there. So I'll remove the wheels. It's really easy on a Catrike. They have quick release on them. So they have a quick release on them right here on the inside. You just undo this, take the bolt all the way out, slide the axle out, then the wheel drops forward. So I've had some concern with people saying, well, how do I realign the brakes? You don't have to realign the brakes. There's nothing to realign. You just put the wheel back in and put it together. Messing with BB7s and BB9s is pretty much the same. It's a mechanical brake system and it's really easy. These are already set up on this particular 700, so really all I'm going to be doing is taking the wheels off. And then I'll pack something around the strut, because on the other side, disc brake, which is the same for both, but it has to be reversed on this side so it's facing down, so it can pull back and do the same thing. But so on the right side of the Trike, the brake, you have to mess with it a little bit more to for packing if you don't want to take it off. I'll be taking off the mirrors so they won't break, and I'll put those in a bag. I'll be taking the handlebars and rotating those in. And so that's it. So I'm going to break all this down and then I'll show you what it looks like when I get done. So you see the outside cap comes off, which is the nut. Pull the axle out. Make sure you leave the spring in there. And the wheel. Once you get the axle out, you gotta kind of push the axle out. There's another spring on the other side. So there's a spring on each side. You kind of push your finger in there. Now be careful when you're pushing your finger in there. Don't have any weight on it because the wheel moves and it'll chop your finger off. And that's it. Take the axle out and the wheel comes right off. That's how easy it is to change a wheel, a front wheel on a Catrike. And that's it. That's all there is to it. I'll do the same thing on the other side. Spring. Axle, you can pull it out either way. So I left the spring in there on the other side, putting the spring back in there. Well, I won't do that until I get the wheel off. So then I just take the wheel. Now on this side I had the parking brake set, so it's not going to come off, but now that the parking brake is released, I'm just going to remove it. That's all there is to it. Put the axle back in, making sure I got springs on both sides. Put the nut back on. So that's all there is to removing the front wheels. The rear wheel is standard bicycle rear wheel removal with the quick release, which is on the other side. But I'm not going to take this off yet until I can get the derailleur off and until I take the chain apart. The reason I'm taking the chain apart is so it doesn't rattle and bang the bike all up in shipping. But for now, I'll remove the mirrors. All that is an Allen bolt on the back side. Loosen it up, kind of jiggle it around a little bit, and it'll slide right out of there. I'll do that on both sides. So if you noticed how I turned it and then pushed it in, because it's just like the old style headsets on bicycles used to be, so it's just got this compression wedge in it, and so you loosen that up and kind of push it back in and it'll release. And pretty much when you put it back together, that's how you put it back together as well. It's pretty easy. And they come right off. So now what I'll do is I'll adjust the handlebars so they're laying in to, again, reduce the size of the overall package. Now the other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen this part here. This is not loosening the headset. You have to do that with this bolt here. So I'll loosen this bolt just a little bit, which still doesn't loosen the headset. All it's doing is putting tension on the top here. So I'm going to remove this, just loosen it a little bit. I'm going to undo these two bolts, and then I can twist the handlebars in. This will also be where you adjust your handlebar in and out. When you get it, you'll be able to adjust it in and out to your liking. But I'm going to move it in again to reduce the size of the package. Then I'll do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now I've got the other side broken down. Now it works a little bit differently because the brake is so much further down. It's mounted down instead of on the top side. The brake cable gets a little bit taut. I can't fold it all the way down, but I can fold it down quite a bit. And I can fold the handlebars in. On to showing you how to take off the chain and removing the rear wheel and the rear fender, and then I'll get to the boom and the derailleur. Okay, so what I'm going to do is turn the trike on its side, and then I'll show you how I remove the chain. I don't have any special chain tools or anything like that, but I'll show you a pretty easy way to get it undone. Basically, on a master link, you squeeze it together from the sides. You squeeze the sides of the dog bone together, and that releases some of the pressure on the hooks that are on each end. Then you squeeze the whole chain together and it just pops right off. Theoretically you can do this by hand, but I've not been able to do that. Maybe on a new chain one time, but I've not been able to do that any other time. So I'll show you how I do this with just a couple of tools. It's really pretty easy. So first of all, I find the master link, and then I take the chain and I put it in the smallest gears, or even take it off. So I don't want any pressure pulling on the chain, right? So then I'm just going to squeeze this together like this and push the chain together. And for me, I put it on the opposite side, and that's how easy it is. It just comes right off. Okay, and then I put the master link back together. To do that, kind of offset it, put it in the holes, and then it slides back the other way to lock in. That's it. That's how easy it is. Now, one of the other things I'm going to show you is how it's routed, because it's important. So I have the upper idler and I have the lower idler. This is an aftermarket product. This is the T-Cycle idler for the 700. It's built specifically for this trike, and I'll show you how to put that back on and put it in place too, as we're going to move it, because we need to have that much more clearance. That'll give us that much more clearance on the bottom. Basically, I'm just going to undo the two clamps that are on it, and I'll rotate it around. But the top side, the top idler, if you think about this, goes to the top side of your crank. So it's going to run up and go into the top through the derailleur. I guess I should show you this. So it's going to go run up in through the top, in through the derailleur, and around the front. The bottom side is going to run on the bottom. When you put this back together, you want to make sure that your chain goes up and over the bottom idler and over the top of the main frame. Okay? Then on the bottom side, the chain comes from around the cranks and goes down to the idler like so. Okay? So then there is no other chain line interference all the way back to the gears and the derailleur, and that's just set up like a standard bicycle. And so you run the chain through. So now I'm going to take the chain apart, and I want you to see how the chain is run through the idler. So it comes from the bottom, runs through the bottom of the idler, through the jockey wheels, back around the top, then it goes around the cogs and back to the front. And that's really the easy, how easy it is to set up. Because once I take this all apart, I'm going to take this off And I'm going to put that up there, and I'm going to tape it in place so none of these mechanisms get bent. And that's really how easy it is. I'm going to take the chain and I'm going to put it in a baggie, and that'll be it. Also, something to consider, this chain is pretty much brand new. I didn't put my Park Tool chain measuring tool on it so you can see that it's brand new. But you'll notice that it has some rust on the sides of it, but that's no big deal. We took this trike to the coast during spring break, and of course with the salty air down there, the rust is going to attack it, and I just can't do anything about that. But this chain is only about a year old. It's well within the limits, it's not worn, and it moves just fine. So you'll notice that it has a little bit of rust on some of the places here, but it doesn't affect the function of the chain. And like I said, they really are fine. You can put your Park Tool on it if you have one, or your chain gauge to see if it's out of tolerance, but it's not. And I'll put the chain in the bag so you know where to find it. So here's the bottom idler bolts that I was telling you about. If you just undo the clamps and we'll rotate it around, and I'll just tighten it back up a little bit so it doesn't move. So remember, just to rotate this down, get it back in the chain line. It's that easy. And as you can see, I already removed the rear tire. So I'll remove the Allen head bolt that's here. I'll get the right size wrench, and I will I'll remove the whole hanger. Instead of taking the derailleur off the hanger, I'll remove the hanger from the frame, and then I'll tie it up there so it will be out of the way. But that's all it is an Allen bolt that goes right into there. I'll put that right back into there so it stays there. So I thought of a better way to put the derailleur in a safe spot as opposed to taping it to the frame. I merely put it in the bag, so it should be just fine in there. Won't have any damage or in there. It's in the same bag as the chain, so no problem. Put it right in there. The bolt is in there. The idler is moved over to the side. The only thing I have left to do is I will undo these bolts here, and I'll take this off, and I'll take the boom out and pack it away, because then we can get it almost down just to the size of the frame for the box. So it's just these quick disconnects, and you see that squeezes the frame together to hold the boom in place. And I'll take that out, and then there's this little clip right here. It's a Catrike specific clip that just pops off to hold the cable in place. And so I'll remove that, and then I should be able to take the boom out, because then I should have plenty of cable that I can get the boom out. So the boom just slides in here, and there's a couple more of these little places here where the cable grabs, and then take the boom off, and I'll move that around. I'll just take it off and I'll wrap it up separately, and then we'll have this trike almost ready to go. Okay, so I got the fender off, and I'm taking the bolt, putting it back in the end of the frame, so that's where you'll find it. To mount it up where the neck rest is, which I'm going to move down, to mount it in there, you just put some zip ties through some of the holes in the fender, and that's as simple as it gets. It was the only thing I could get in England, so that's what I used, and it's worked out great. It doesn't have any of the extra struts or wires or anything else anywhere else. So I'll put that together, and we're almost done packing this trike up. Okay, the other thing I wanted to show you that I forgot to show you when I initially took it apart was I wanted to show you, if you recall, this has a Catrike space frame, and the boom has a groove in the top of it. It's got a Teflon spacer inside here, so I loosened this up. I pulled the cable. I guess I didn't have to take this clip off, but I did so I'd have some room. I pulled the cable out, and all I did was loosen the boom, and then the boom slides right out, and that's all there is to it. So it's the space frame boom, Catrike boom, and then what I'll do is I'll wrap this up and I'll put it here. That way you don't have to do cranks or pedals or anything like that if you don't have any special tools. It really is that simple to put back together. Okay, and so that's how I break it down. And what I'll do is, got the rear of the frame braced in a box, got the crank all wrapped up in some bubble wrap and in a plastic bag wrapped up underneath there. Got both of the front spindles blocked, and I've got the front of the boom blocked. I'll put the wheels in here, and then I'll take this box and I'll break it down and get it as small as I can. Okay, all boxed up and ready to go. It's 59 by 19 tall by 30 inches wide, and put an address on it and get it shipped out. So look for a pretty good sized box. I even was able to fit the wheel in there inside of another box. So hopefully you get it in a few days. Alright, so that's it, it's gone. That trike has been in my life for a long time. I enjoyed it, I had a lot of fun with it, but now it's time to get on with the ice trikes and the Velo. So I can have the folding capability with the ice trikes. Have the folding capability with both of those, so it's a lot easier to transport them and ride with the elusive lovely bride. So, space where the 700 used to hang is now empty. I may have to see if I can get the other ice trike to hang there, either by taking the cover off the rear wheel or getting the big hooks that I can hang on the front of the cruciform there. So that's it. Life is changing and that's it. So now it's left is just some leftover remnants of the old box and the space where it used to be. So there we go. Alright, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And of course, until next time, in another adventure. Cheers.